Hello. So I'm Bob. I'm doing the reading for today. And we're kind of following on from where we were yesterday with the introduction of this everlasting salvation, everlasting redemption that God has given His people, or going to give His people. And then we come to Isaiah 51 and Isaiah 52, and it's kind of this title that we get is the wrath, or the cup of God's wrath. And it sounds like intensely serious. It's like, oh my gosh, what is this cup of God's wrath? And essentially, Isaiah paints a picture of how bad it is, again, of how wrong God's people have gone. And he kind of starts painting this picture of really the depth of despair that mankind has got to. And then we introduce in sort of the end of Isaiah 52 and into Isaiah 53 to the idea of this servant, this person who's been introduced in the other chapters before, or the servant or the redeemer, is now the suffering servant. So Isaiah 53 is a very famous passage and prophetically talking about Jesus in very kind of like minute detail in some ways. So if you look at verse 4, it says, "Surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows, yet we considered him stricken by God, smitten by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions." It's like, goodness me, that is totally talking about Jesus on the cross, isn't it? He was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities, and the punishment that brought us peace was upon him. And by his wounds we are healed. We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. And that's basically, as we're going through Isaiah, it kind of centres around this passage really, which is talking really explicitly about Jesus and what God's going to do. And whether Isaiah knew exactly what he was writing, and at this point we don't really know, but he's talking, isn't he, about the sin, the iniquity of us all being put upon one person, this suffering servant. And that's exactly what Jesus came to do and came to fulfill, was to take away this wrath that we've just read about in the previous chapter, the cup of God's wrath. That Jesus is going to drink that so we don't have to, and that we would never have to. And it's absolutely amazing. And then after that, you go on to the next bit, and it starts talking about the future glory of Zion, and that's God's people, the future glory of God's people. And basically, so if you take the three headings that kind of mix in with the chapters here, you've got the cup of God's wrath, you've got the depth of sin that mankind's got to. You've got the suffering and glory of the servant. So you've kind of got this idea of this person who's going to take on all this suffering, and then you've got the future glory of Zion, and this thing that it's not just going to be the servant has to suffer, but there's going to be this amazing, amazing, amazing outcome because of the suffering of the servant.